we're getting ready to start our last section.
Yay.
And it's not a real long section. I'm showing like 7 questions in it. So, not too bad, y'all. So, 8.6 is about polynomial inequalities. So I'm going to actually put my steps down here to solving these. Remember, since we're dealing with inequalities, we're looking at solving our equation with greater than, less than, greater than equals, and less than and equals. Okay? So we're looking at equations that can have many solutions to them, okay? So really the first thing I do to this is I'm going to set the polynomial equal to 0. And solve. And y'all, today we're mainly going to be playing with the quadratic polynomials with the x squareds in them. Okay, so I'm going to set this polynomial equal to 0 and solve it. I'm then going to set up a number line using the solutions. All right, so I'm going to set up my number line using my solutions, and then I'm going to figure out a test point. So I'm going to find a test point. And I probably use 0 every time when I test a number because that's the easiest one to put in there. So I'm going to find a test point and check the intervals. All right, because usually on most of these I'm going to have 3 intervals because I'll have 2 answers. Okay, so say A and B are my solutions. One pattern my answers will be is it's going to shade in between the A and B. Okay. The other style on our answers, it'll shade the outsides and leave the inside alone. So if I got style 1, it'll just be one set of parentheses from whatever number to the other number. If I got style 2, though, it'll be a union in between. It'll have this interval, union, with this interval over here. It's going to be one way or the other, okay? And there's never 2 shaded sections in a row or 2 blank sections in a row, okay? So if my first section is going to be blank, then my answer will definitely be into the middle selection section, and then that last section will be blank, okay? So when we're testing it, we'll tell which of our intervals will be shaded or not. And then, y'all, the last thing we're going to do is write the answer in interval notation. Now there's only one thing we got to watch out for on this. If I'm solving this and I only get one solution, then I'm only going to kick that one number out of my domain. So if only one solution when solving, then that's the only number excluded from the domain. Okay, so that would happen when the graphs come down and they just touch the x-axis and then they turn back up. Okay. Okay, so let's start work some of these. All right, they're not too bad. It's just figuring out how to solve them. So we'll solve the following inequalities. All right, so number one, they were pretty nice on number one, and they already factored this one for us. They factored this one into a x minus 4 and a x plus 2 less than 0. And these will bring back memories from actually graphing these also, okay? So they've already started solving that polynomial because it's already factored. So what we'll do at this point is take both these answers and set them equal to 0 so that we'll get our two solutions, okay? So y'all, looks like we're going to add 4 to the first one. And I get x is a positive 4. And then I'll subtract 2 from the second one and get x is a negative 2. So I've got my zeros or my solutions. So now I'm going to set up a number line using these two solutions they gave me. So I know what negative 2 is going to come before a positive 4. So over here is going to be my negative 2, and that'll be my positive 4. So this says find a test point and check the intervals. Well, I'm going to check a number that I know is in between that negative 2 and 4, and that's 0. Okay. To me, 0 is the easiest number to test. So to test the 0, I'm going to put my 0 into this equation and see if it's true or not. Okay. So put 0 into the equation. So if I do that, I'll have 0 minus 4 times 0 plus 2 has to be less than 0. So is that true or false? Let's see, what do we get? A negative 4 times a 2 less than 0. So that'd be what, a negative 8? Less than 0. That is definitely true. So since that's true, I'm going to shade the section that the 0 is located. So true, shade section where 0 was located. So on my number line, 0 was in between the negative 2 and the 4. So I'm now going to shade in between the negative 2 and the 4. Now, since I shaded the center, that's the only solution we'll get. Now, had that been false in the middle, I would have shaded both the edges. Good job. So now let me go to the end where I'm going to write it in interval notation. So question number one, do I want to use curvy parentheses or would I use brackets? So focus on this. So that's going to be the curvy. Now, had that had an equals under it, then I'd have used the brackets, okay? So this interval has to have curvy parentheses, and it starts at -2, and then it goes to 4 with curvy parentheses, okay? All right, so it's not too bad, are we? But y'all can solve those quadratics now, right? So only trick, the only new part is just testing those points and seeing where we're going to shade it. All right, so that was a nice one. That's one where they were going to already have it factored for you, okay? So here we go, y'all. X squared minus 13x plus 40 is going to be greater than 0. So we hit that with the quad right off the bat if you wanted to hit it with the quad formula. But I'm going to factor it. Get y'all good at factoring. So in the beginning would be an x and an x. So can y'all tell me what two signs I would put into my little parentheses? Oh. So here's the thing. That last sign is a positive. So that means we need like signs in those parentheses.
Okay.
So they're both going to be negative. Only time we'll get unlike signs is if the last one's a negative, okay? Because remember, a negative plus a negative is a negative when you add them, but a negative times a negative is a positive. 5 and 8. See, once you got that done, it's pretty quick getting them numbers. So then I'll set both them equal to 0 and solve. So I get a positive 5 and a positive 8. But yeah, at the beginning, you could have did it. A was 1, B would be -13, C would be 40, and y'all could have used the quad, okay? All right, so let's set up our number line, right? So I got a 5 and an 8. Now, I'll tell you the truth. I'm still going to test the 0. But where would the 0 be located? Yeah, 0's over here this time, okay? But I'm going to test my 0. If it's true, y'all on this, if 0's true, I'll shade the first one and the last one. If it's false, we're only going to shade in the middle, okay? Now, the reason I like zeros is 0 squared is a 0. 0 times anything is a 0. So the question is 40 greater than 0, true or false? You said that was definitely true. So since it's true, I'm going to shade where 0 is located. Then I will skip the second section, or skip the middle section. And shade the third section. So that now I'm going to shade from the 8 to my infinity. Okay. So they're either going to shade centers only or outsides only. So the question of the day, how would I write that in interval notation? I'm going to start out at negative infinity. Let's get a hit.
5.
All righty.
Then
And then a union.
8 to
And there you go. So 8 to positive infinity. Okay, so y'all good on that? Questions on that? Thing you got to watch out for on these when you're solving them. Just remember, if you ever solve these and you divide by negative, you got to flip the little inequality around, okay? And I do think we got one doing that later. So, you know, all we're going to really do to these is switch up the type of equations you're starting with to see how you solve them. So this one I got an x squared plus 7x minus 22 is greater than or equal to an x minus 6. So first thing I would do if I was y'all would take these and put them on the other side. Okay.
negative.
And I'm just going to do them both at once. So I know I'm going to subtract the x from both sides. Well, the x's will go there. But then I'm also going to add a 6 to both sides, right? So notice we get an x squared plus 7 minus 1 is 6x minus, what's 22 minus 6? 16. All that's greater than or equal to 0. So I'll factor that. So let's see what y'all do to this one factor. So what signs y'all putting on this one?
Negative and positive.
So negative and a positive.
And it's positive 8 and negative.
So positive 8, negative 2. Good job. So just remember, when you're factoring, the larger of the two factors, the larger one has the same sign as that middle every time. So since the 8 was larger, it had to be positive like my 6, okay? All right, so now let's get them answers. I'm going to set both these equal to 0. Now, if you did do quad on this one, you had to wait till you got to this step with the x squared, 6x, negative 16 to hit it with the quad. All right, so positive 2 and what, a negative 8. So then we're going to set up our number line. So who's going first on the left?
Negative.
Okay. So 0 is in between negative 8 and 2. So no, 0's in the middle this time. Now, I'll tell y'all the truth. You don't have to use zeros when you're testing. I just think that's the easy number. You can test the number out of any of these sections, okay? But whoa, zeros are really easy to And I'm gonna pick it up at this step right here, where I got everything on one side equal to 0. So I got a 0 squared plus 6 times 0 minus 16 has to be greater than or equal to minus 0. And the reason I use zeros is usually that stuff's all gone. So negative 16 greater than or equal to 0, true or false? False. There you go. So I do not shade where the 0 was located since it was false, and I'm going to shade the outsides.
On MATLAB, do we have this set up for us in these shapes?
What now?
On MATLAB, do we have this set up for us in these shapes?
I'm gonna tell you the truth. All MATLAB's going to want out of y'all is this interval notation. We're just doing this to sort of help us solve them when we break them into the intervals and stuff. That's why I just use that to sort of help you solve it. But yeah, all MATLAB wants is that final answer to be done with it. So, interval notation. We know we're going to start at negative infinity until I hit.
Doesn't need to be in brackets.
Well, when you put that negative a, it's now going to be a bracket. And in union, so it's going to go around to 2. But I mean, what's the, are you going to put
It's a bracket.
bracket? Okay. And then from what, 2 to 9, infinity. So I'll just see what y'all do. But yeah, if one number's got a bracket, then that other one's definitely going to have the bracket also. Okay. So y'all, the trick to these is really testing it to see where you're true or false at. Okay. So let's see what we do now. X squared greater than a 9. Yeah, I'll say on that one, you could move that 9 over and get it equal to 0. But there's one method that would solve this one really quick. Square, there you go, square roots. If I take square roots of both sides, I can bust that x squared down and bust that 9 down and be done. So I'm going to take a square root of both sides. Just remember, when you take square root of a number, you got to consider it could be positive or negative, okay?
X equals positive negative 3.
Positive or negative 3, okay? So that you could have solved 3 different ways. You could have moved that 9 over and factored it. You could have moved the 9 over and hit it with the quad, or hit the square roots like this, okay? So I got my negative 3 here and my 3, so I know my 0 is in the middle. And this one's really quick, right? 0 squared greater than 9, true or false? It's definitely false. So I'm not shading in the middle. I'm shading on the outsides. Usually on these, if they're greater than, they'll shade outside. If they're less than, they'll shade inside on, okay? All right, so the interval would be negative infinity till I hit that negative 3. So y'all want curves or brackets? And then we're going to union from what? 3, positive infinity. Okay. I'm sort of glad this section's at the end because it's sort of mild compared to them rational expressions. All right, so let's see what we do to this one. 25 minus x squared is less than or equal to 0. So I tell you on that one, I'd probably rearrange it and get it in order. So I want the x squared in the front. So I got a negative x squared plus the 25 is less than or equal to 0. And I'll tell you, I really don't like that negative being in front of my x squared. So I'm going to divide everybody by a -1. And I can do that as long as I do it to everybody. But since I'm dividing by -1, I'm about to flip my little inequality around. So that this is now a greater than or equal. Okay, so just remember, anytime you divide by negative, you got to reverse it. So I now have an x squared minus 25 greater than or equal to a 0. So y'all, let me say this. You can add 25 and do it this way. I'm going to factor that real quick. So the x squared is an x and an x. Let me see what signs would y'all put in that. Positive and a negative. Good job for that last one. Is negative at 25. But there's a 0 in the middle because there's no x. So can you find me factors of 25? That'll give you a 0, and that'll be a 5 and a 5. Now, when you see something, this is called the difference of perfect squares. So basically, square root of x squared is the x's. Square root of 25 is the 5's. All right, so let's see what we get. Or you could have did 1, 0, negative 25 on the y. So what's we're going to get a -5. And then on the second one, I'm just going to add my 5. And get x is a positive 5. So set up your interval. Got a -5 and a positive 5. So once again, y'all, my 0 is right in the middle. So what I like about 0 is you can go to any one of these equations. So I'll just use this one. So I got 0 squared minus 25 has to be greater than or equal to 0. So true or false? So that's false. So I cannot shade where the 0 is located. So I'm going to go to the outsides and shade. But if you notice, it ended up being a greater than, so greater than is usually shade to the outsides. All righty, so let's see. We're coming in from -infinity. -5. So what do y'all want there? Bracket. So bracket because we got the equals. And then union bracket. Positive infinity. Okay. No questions on that, y'all? Well, all right, here comes a 10x minus 25 minus x squared, all less than 0. Better slow down, we're getting too many done. So I'm got one more after this. Well, the first thing I would do is probably
With the range.
rearrange that, get that in order. So I'll put my x squared first, then my positive 10x, then my negative 25, all less than 0. So which one want to do next? Divide by -1. So we don't like the x squared being negative. Which means this is now a greater than. All right, so I get an x squared minus 10x plus 25 greater than 0. So basically, all we're doing is changing everybody's signs and flipping it around, okay?
We got two x negative 5.
I'm glad I got you fixed on the factor.
Yes.
Right, factor to 25, that'll give me 10 or 5 and 5, both negative, so good job. Oh, so look what's happening here. Just one answer, because I'm gonna get a positive 5 for both of these. So anytime you draw that number line, and you just get one number, what I say? That's the only number not in my domain. So we'll go from negative infinity until we hit.
5.
And y'all, this one has no choice but to be curvy parentheses when you got the one answer, okay?
It's not usually.
Get into 5 to infinity. So it's the only one that'll do you like that. But what's happening on that one, if you got your x-axis, that parabola is just coming down and touching it instead of going through it, okay? All right, so let's see what we get here. I got a x squared plus 8 is going to be less than 4x. So the first thing you really want to do is get everything on one side. So we're going to subtract 4x from both sides. So what do we get, y'all? We get the x squared, then we'll put the negative 4x plus the 8 will be less than 0 now. So y'all hitting that with the quad, or we can try to factor that, right? Well, I know I got an x and an x. We know both of these signs will be negative. All right, so find me some factors of 8 that'll give me a 4 when you add. I'll get y'all puzzled already. So 4 and 2 ain't working. 8 and 1 ain't working.
No, 6 and 2.
That'd be 12. So guess what? This does not factor. And anytime you got one of these that cannot factor it, or if you use the quad and it gives you like radical answers or imaginary answers, if you do that kind of stuff, this has got a no solution. So I didn't bring my, hey, punch that on quad real quick and see what we get. See if we get like radicals. The eyes, so it's imaginary. So since we can get real answers on that, if you use the quad, it tells me it's a no solution on that. Okay? So on quad, if we get really on quad, hell, if you get decimals when you first do it, you might as well quit it. Okay. So if we get decimals or radicals or imaginary, then it is no solution. Because all those methods would mean it does not factor under integers, okay? All right, so questions? Oh, that'll knock out all the material for test 3. So Wednesday with y'all, I'm gonna come in here, knock out my 20 question study guide. And don't forget the bonus. I sent a bonus in the emails for y'all, so y'all remember that, okay? So that'll be due by the time that test is due. So if you don't bring it to me Wednesday, you'll have to email it to me, okay? All right, y'all. So I'm gonna put this. I'll send this video out later. That way y'all have this video to play with.